as our speaker today. He's an associate professor at the Department of Political Science at UC Riverside, speaking on the subject, the effects of disagreement on deliberative quality, the California Speaks Healthcare Deliberation Experiment. Join me in welcoming him today.
Thanks very much. So the research I'm going to talk about today is collaborative with these guys, Archon Fung, who's a political theorist at Harvard Kennedy School, and Taeku Lee, who's at Berkeley. And that's kind of a lot to say. Esterling, Fung, Lee, it seems like a lot. So we had this thought that maybe we'll kind of condense, give a shorthand. We thought, well, Fung Lee works, but then we realized that that's makes you think of more like a germ or a disease, and so maybe that doesn't work so well. So we're trying to work on a good shorthand notation. Anyway, so what Fung Lee is interested in, we're interested in studying the empirical practice of deliberative democracy. So there's theoretical literature in political science that deliberative theorists tell us what are the kinds of things that help to make a democracy legitimate by normative criteria. So the theorists are interested in things like, do people think that the political process, and in particular for them it's the sort of discursive nature of the political process by which decisions are reached, is that process itself good or well-functioning? Do people think that the policies that are decided on upon reflection, do they think that the policies are legitimate or good? Deliberative theorists are also very interested in persuasion because, again, they're interested in discussion. And so is it the case that people are able to sort of talk things through and persuade each other? So that's what the theorists tell us are kind of important things, or at least those are the three things in this literature that we're going to focus on today. But as the three of us, Archon, Taeku, and I, are interested in the empirical practice of deliberative democracy. And so for us, what's interesting is, what is it? What are the institutional situations or settings that help to make governments or groups of citizens help to achieve the ideal, the theorists, sort of the normative ideals that the deliberative theorists are interested in. And so what we're going to talk about today is, well, what are some of the institutional settings that help to improve deliberative quality in discussions among citizens along these three dimensions. And so just to be specific, we've taken a concept from the literature on deliberative democracy where deliberative theorists say that what you need to have in a good, robust discussion is you need some disagreement. So people can't just, if people all just agree with each other, you can think about why is that? So if everybody just agrees with each other ahead of time, then there really isn't any kind of a robust exchange of ideas, that there's really nothing to talk about. And in fact, you can worry that there might be even groupthink where people might have predispositions that are wrong and they might reinforce it in each other. But in any case, there isn't, if everybody agrees with each other, there's nothing to talk about and there's not the robust exchange of ideas. On the other hand, you could imagine a setting which is very common in politics, where people disagree with each other so much that they just talk past each other. And so if they totally disagree with each other, they're not going to connect, and they won't have that kind of interaction that normative theorists think leads people to believe that the process and the policy that was decided on is good. And so what the deliberative theorists tell us is it requires some disagreement, but just a moderate amount of disagreement to make deliberative democracy work well. And so you can see it's kind of, you can think of it graphically where there's this kind of concave or inverse U-shaped function that as the disagreement gets stronger and stronger, the people's perception of the quality of deliberation will go up. But then as disagreement gets too strong, then people's perception of disagreement will go down. There's some theory, the deliberative theorists actually don't draw so much on the theory, but there is some theory in the social psychology literature on mixed versus homogeneous groups. So if you know that literature, you know that the social psychologists tell us that when you have people with different viewpoints together, you get more learning, for example. And if everybody agrees with each other, you get this kind of groupthink where people reinforce each other's wrong ideas. And the thing that we're adding here to the social psychologists is that in politics, people can be so mixed that they don't talk to each other well at all, right? So something that social psychologists don't really think about. They think of mixed as a good thing, but what we're arguing, we're just sort of adding to this literature and saying, well, in some settings you can be too mixed that you don't have the kind of learning that the social psychologists envision. Yeah.
I guess this is outside the scope of this, but Cass Sunstein's work on juries, the mock juries basically suggest that moderate disagreement can sometimes give bizarre results.
You know what I'm going to do is, can I ask you to bring that up afterwards? Yeah, Cass was actually one of my dissertation advisors, so I should know that, but I'm actually not familiar with that study. In fact, he writes faster than I can read, so, but I'd be very glad to talk about that. Yeah. So anyway, so that's sort of the bottom line, bracketing the Sunstein critique, is that so in this study we expect that this kind of deliberative effects would be this concave function, where you expect kind of the most robust exchange of ideas and sort of the best deliberative quality at this moderate range of disagreement. Now we argue in this paper that if you're interested in studying deliberative democracy, it's essential to do it in an experimental framework. And the reason is what's set out, what I'm going to set out on this slide. And so the reason is that there's kind of an iron law among people, that people like to talk to each other. People like to choose who they talk to. And it's also the case that people like to talk to other people that are just like them. Okay, and so people, if you just let people choose which deliberative setting to go to, let's say you have several different ones and you want to compare deliberation across different settings, if you let people choose which one to go to, they're going to always try to choose that setting that has other people that are just like them. And that's called homophily. This is what you could call the iron law of homophily. And the concern for deliberative experiments, where you're interested in sort of what's the quality of deliberation across a variety of settings. If people are selecting themselves into the different settings, you might worry that whatever findings, whatever differences that you observe across settings is spurious. And that certain personality types might be attracted to different settings, and those personality types might be driving both disagreement as well as deliberative quality. So just to give you a picture of that, imagine first that there are some people who really like to discuss issues constructively. And so you let them into the room, and they're going to find other people just like them that like to discuss issues constructively. And so those people, will debate things and have, afterwards think that they had a really good discussion, okay? But not yell at each other. You could imagine other people who are very quiet and passive, who don't like to debate things at all, and they might find each other, and they don't sort of talk about anything, but then they don't really think that they really accomplished much that day. Finally, you might have the kind of loudmouth sort of people like my dad who like to kind of get into and mix it up. And I don't know why my dad, I don't know, that doesn't help you at all, but maybe you all know such people. And they might seek each other out as well, and they might yell at each other all day, but not have a very good exchange as well because they didn't connect. And so if this were happening, then what we would observe then is that those that had the moderate level of disagreement had the best exchange, but it wasn't the disagreement itself that caused them to have a good exchange. It was just the mix of personality types. Or the scenario I just set out is observationally equivalent to that non-monotonic diagram I just showed you on the previous page. So you really would worry about that. In the paper we actually talk about this somewhat extensively. And so what you really want to do is to have some kind of systematic assignment to assign people to different settings. So in this study, we're looking at how deliberation went across different small group tables. And so you would want to have some kind of systematic assignment for people to tables, so that you can try to pin down the causal effect of the discussion at that table on the outcomes that we're interested in. So fortunately, this group, America Speaks, ran such a deliberative experiment They didn't realize it when they did it that it was an experiment, but it turned out it actually was. They weren't thinking experimentally, but it turned out to be true. So on August 11th, 2007, there were 3,000